It's crazy, man. This is nuts. Despite the intra-party fighting, Sanders said, we're going to win this thing, adding the American people are very, very strongly on our side. If the American people are on our side, honestly, we've lost the country. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story this morning is regarding crazy Bernie Sanders wanting Sleepy Joe to spend, get this, $6 trillion instead of the current $3.5 trillion that is trying to be passed at the moment. This one comes from our friends over at the Daily Wire. If you're not already a member, please go over and become a subscriber today. This one's written by Joseph Curl and he titles it, Never Enough. Bernie Sanders says $6 trillion spending plan, quote, probably too little. Starts off saying Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent from Vermont, and let's be honest here, he is not an independent. He is an open socialist. The guy has ranted and raved about socialist countries his entire life. He's raved about tyrants. He's raved about dictators. The guy loves these countries, these socialist countries, so much that he even honeymooned in the Soviet Union and has raved about it and loved it, by the way. The Soviet Union. Get that. Well, let's call him what he is. He's a socialist. He's not an independent. Well, he said his initial $6 trillion infrastructure proposal was, quote, probably too little, and said the current $3.5 trillion social spending package should be a minimum. This guy is out of his mind. He's batshit crazy. I know I'm trying not to cuss, but it is. It's batshit crazy. Folks, we are $28 trillion in debt. United States government is spending $100,000 every 2 seconds. The average American taxpayer owes, if we were called on our debt, $288,000. $288,000. Do you have $288,000 sitting around? Because I don't. Not many Americans do. The average American citizen would owe about $80,000, $85,000 right now if we were called on this debt. But Bernie Sanders, who is the chairman of the budget committee in the Senate, folks, wants to spend $6 trillion. And we also have to be honest, this is not $3.5 trillion that Biden and the Democrats are trying to push through. This is more like $5 to $5.5. So if Bernie Sanders had it his way, minimum $6 trillion would really look like $8.5 to $9 trillion. And we just throw out this word trillion like it's normal nowadays. I mean, $1 million used to be hard to say. And then $1 billion used to be really hard to say. And now we just throw around trillion like it's willy-nilly. $6 trillion is literally unfathomable. I can't even imagine what that amount of money would look like in real life. But according to Bernie, crazy Bernie, it's just normal. And it makes you wonder when this guy had a coherent thought last in his brain. It had to be a long time because the dude is just nuts. The guy's not all there, but people just go on board with whatever he says, and Joe Biden's working with this knucklehead. Well, quote, the $6 trillion that I originally proposed was probably too little, he said. $3.5 trillion should be a minimum, but I accept that there's going to be some give and take, Sanders said Sunday on ABC News This Week, referring to the plan that he proposed over the summer. And thank God that plan never went through. Even $3.5 trillion should never go through. And we could think about this on an individual level. The government, that's in debt by $28 trillion, meaning we're spending vastly more than we're taking in, is consistently spending $1 trillion, $2 trillion, 3.5, $6 trillion. On an individual basis, would you allow somebody to run your finances that is consistently having you spend more than you're taking in? Does that sound responsible? Does that seem like on an individual level, on an individual American level, that you'll be able to live successfully in life, that you'll have retirement, that you'll have certain things planned for your children, that you'll be able to feed your children appropriately, that you're not going to go bankrupt in life? Like all these things that apply on an individual level apply on a governmental level as well. But we're consistently electing these idiots into office that are spending our money, our hard-earned money, and they're just spending it willy-nilly and giving it to other people because we have to take out debt. This has gone corrupt, it's disgusting, and it's irresponsible. Well, here's another quote from Bernie Sanders. Poll after poll shows what we are doing is exactly what the American people want. Oh, really? This is what the American people want. If I was to sit down as an accountant and explain what the American people want and what the politicians are doing, do you think it would be in line with one another? Do you really think American people want to spend $288,000 individually because the government's spending just up the wazoo? I don't think so. I've explained this to 12th graders, and they fully understand it and are not on board for what the politicians are doing. Left and right and middle. All across the board, none of them are okay with this. Well, it's not what the big money interest wants. It's not what the lobbyists wants. It's what the American people want. I would love to see this poll, how the poll was conducted, how the study was conducted, I mean the observational study, because there has to be bias in this. I can't fathom an average American citizen being okay with this if somebody actually explained it to them in layman's terms. Because they're doing some finagling here with the numbers, right? They're saying, oh, well, we're going to shift some money around in the budget and all these other things. There's so many other big priorities that we need to figure out, like Medicare and maybe Social Security, before we start spending $3.5 trillion on these social programs like national paid leave, child care expenses for anybody that has a kid over a certain age or under a certain age, I should say, and just consistently spending and spending. And I know I'm repeating myself, but you can't fathom this. I can't fathom this. This is getting ridiculous, and we're constantly having these Democrats, these socialists, these leftists running the show, and we're allowing them to do it without creating an uproar. At what point are we going to hit the streets on this stuff? This is so irresponsible, and I'm trying to keep myself from yelling into the mic. I'm trying to keep myself stable here, but it's kind of like when you see a fire and people are running into the building, you're trying to tell them no, or maybe there's a bomb in the building, you're trying to tell them no, hey, it's going to go off, don't go in the building, and they just don't listen to you. That's what I feel like when I do this type of show on this type of spending, is that I'm telling people if there's a bomb in the building, don't go in, and like nobody's listening to me, nobody's on board with it. I understand all of you are, but when you talk in general, how is this stuff being allowed to get passed? Both Republicans and Democrats. Now I understand again, the Republicans are like, I'm not doing this thing, this is on you guys, blah, blah, blah. But how is it that you're a leftist or a Democrat and you're okay with this? I don't get it. I just don't see the logic behind it, the reasoning, or the emotion. I don't see anything that remotely resembles this type of acceptance of spending this type of money. Moderate and progressive lawmakers within the Democratic Party have been at loggerheads over a $1 trillion infrastructure plan and a $3.5 trillion social spending plan. The bill as it stands now includes progressive programs such as tuition-free community college, expanded Medicare, and universal preschool program. Now remember, this is also a big problem because if this goes into the budget, and it's not all federal, a lot of it gets passed down really to the state level, which sucks for those that live in California like I do, or these leftist states like New York, is that we're already getting hounded with these expenses on taxes. And so it's only going to increase our taxes more here when we can't even figure out our own damn budget on a state level, let alone a federal level. So that even sucks even more. And why should I have to pay for somebody's community college as an adult? You're the one that decided to go in, save up your own damn money and buy your own damn educational books and expenses. Why should I have to pay for it? Somebody, can anybody leave me a comment? And really, please, I'm sincerely asking this. Can somebody leave me a comment on why I should have to pay for somebody else's community college? I just don't understand. I'm fumbling through my words because on all this, I don't get it. Why am I having to pay for somebody's preschool program? It's crazy, man. This is nuts. Despite the intra-party fighting, Sanders said, we're going to win this thing, adding the American people are very, very strongly on our side. If the American people are on our side, honestly, we've lost the country. And I mean that in all literal sense. That's not coming from emotion. That's coming from pure logic and reasoning. If the American public are on par and on totally acceptance level of spending this type of money, 3.5 trillion here, 2 trillion there on the COVID relief package, 1 trillion on military, constantly try to build our military, which is main function of government, by the way, which that's why I'm okay with it, but not okay with it if you're not figuring out the budget to where we're constantly in the negative, we're constantly in the red, we need to be in the black, we need to have a surplus here so we can start paying off our debt. That's what needs to happen because we're in some serious shit if it doesn't. And I know, again, I'm waving my hands like this, folks, please, for the love of God, send this out to your friends and family because they need to understand, or at least explain it to them, the ramification of what is going on with our country on a budget level. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill were set to vote last week on the two bills which make up central pillars of President Joe Biden's agenda. At the week's beginning, Biden confidently predicted passage. After all, Democrats effectively control both the House and Senate, which had already passed the infrastructure bill by a vote of 69-30. Now, have you even seen this bill, this 3 trillion or 1 trillion, whatever one you look at, and you look at how big it is? I mean, you're talking 2,500 pages. I've read a 1,500 to 1,700 page book, multiple of them, by the way. One of them is really good. It's by Luke Cannon. It's about Reagan. Read it if you can. Phenomenal book, but I digress. That's off the topic. But it takes a long time to read that and fully understand it and get everything that's within it, right? Just on a normal novel. Now, when you're reading legal stuff, when you're reading these bills and all this pork that's thrown into it, I guarantee you there's not a single Democrat, there's not a single person on this planet can talk about the entire thing here. And I've said in the past, and Ben Shapiro has the same exact recommendation as I do, is that if we're going to be doing this stuff, we don't need to be passing these massive spending things. Have it be a paragraph. Have it be a sentence. hey, we're going to spend money on this is what it's going to be. Sign it. Boom, you're good. You don't need to keep lumping all this stuff in where nobody's going to read it. We're just going to push it through. It's irresponsible. It's just irresponsible. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Biden acknowledges his economic plan has been very much curtailed by a whole range of things and would take some time. But some said that the bipartisan infrastructure bill and Democrats' budget bill needed, excuse me, to be enacted. But it didn't take long for everything to go askew. Progressives in the House vowed to oppose the infrastructure bill if the benefits package was trimmed, and a threat they'd make good on by week's end. The House never voted on the packages. Now you have this battle going on within the House, specifically between Democrats, because the Democratic Party is kind of split from kind of centrist progressive to leftist progressive. I mean, it's even tough now to kind of distinguish the two, right? But there is this battle going on between the party like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, to where you have the general ones like Joe Manchin, who's kind of holding everything together for not just the country, but also for the Republican Party, even though he's a Democrat, but also for the centrist Democrats as well. I mean, the Democrat Party is so skewed in array and scattered, it is nuts. And it's really hard to explain where they're at as a party, but what you can do is lump up them all together and definitely see that they're moving further left. They are not moving further center, and they like to blame everything on the Republicans. The Republicans are going far right, and they're racist and bigoted and homophobe, all these things, when Republicans at the end of the day are pretty much staying in line to where they have been. Again, Democrats have gone so far left, you don't have to look too far. Just look in the 60s. Right? Look in the 60s with Kennedy. Listen to Kennedy's speeches and how he talked. Kennedy almost sounds like a Republican. That's how far left the Democrats have gone. Well, speaking of Joe Manchin, he's a Democrat, has been Biden's key vote in the Senate, which is a split 50-50 between the two parties. But on Wednesday, the moderate delivered a fatal blow to the president's massive spending plan, saying, quote, definition of fiscal insanity. Yes, thank you. Insanity is the definition of doing something over and over again, especially something that's irresponsible. We have these people that were elected to run and be responsible for the purse, and they haven't been responsible for years, for decades, and that's why it needs to stop. And it's only up to us Americans to make it stop by stop electing these people in. And there's many problems, and maybe even not just problems, but also ways that we can fix it that we could talk about maybe on another episode. But I just wish people could understand how serious this is. I really do. This is probably one of the biggest problems we have as a nation, and we keep blowing it off. And I think that's done because the average American loves to blow off their own expenses as well. We put everything on credit. We finance our cars. We do this all the time on an individual level. And because we do it on an individual level, we think it's okay on a mass level as a nation. And so that's where I see the problem at, is where it starts with the individual and then it curtails to a tribalistic milieu, as a country, as a nation, as a social fabric, I guess is the better term I should be using, to where we're just accepting of this. But we're going to have an oh shit moment when all this has to be paid off, and then we're going to be pissed when our taxes are through the roof. But the thing is, we did it to ourselves. We allowed Congress to do this. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We haven't felt the pain yet, but it's coming. It really is coming, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be terrible. Manchin said that every member of Congress has a duty to do what is best for the country and not their party. Absolutely right. How am I agreeing with a Democrat? Are we in the upside down here in Stranger Things? Noting that he has stated for months that he cannot support a $3.5 trillion and more spending. I don't know who could be on. I'm just repeating myself. I'm just so. It's again, I just can't wrap my head around it. I really can't, you guys. And maybe some of you can. I don't know. Trust me, I've thought about it. This is my biggest issue. I've said that. This is the only other issue that comes right after this is illegal immigration. But this just budget is nuts. And it comes from an accounting standpoint, right? And a mathematician and a statistician. I think logically. I think about numbers. And I know where things are going, the ramifications of it, right? When you have clients, you have to explain to them whether you're doing their fiscal planning or you're doing their budget for them, you're doing the business budget. You're literally explaining to them, hey, what's going to happen in the future? This is what you need to expect. And that's what I'm trying to do now through the show. And the sad thing is, this type of show, I don't get a lot of views, but even the shows that I do about budget, if you look consistently at the other episodes I've done on other things, this is probably one of the least rated shows when you talk about budget. Just Americans don't care. And I think that's what it is. And maybe that's partially what Bernie Sanders is coming from, is the American people, I think, just maybe don't care because they don't understand how big of a problem this is and the ramifications that comes with it later on in the future. Quote, at some point, all of us, regardless of party, must ask the simple question, how much is enough? Manchin said. Absolutely agree. What I've made clear to the president and Democrat leaders is that spending trillions more on a new and expanded government program when we can't even pay for the essential social programs like Social Security and Medicare is the definition of fiscal insanity. Logical, makes 100% sense, and is exactly what I led with on the show, is how are we going to spend for these other programs when we haven't even handled Medicare and Social Security? You all want your Social Security. It's going to go down the drain. It's going to go insolvent very soon here. The amount of problems we have on the budget is insane, And everybody likes to point towards all our military spending, all these things. Again, main function of government, folks, main function of government. The government is not there to consistently just hand you free checks all you want willy-nilly to pay for your education, meaning your freaking college education, not pay for your child expenses, your daycare, and all these other things. That's not what the government is for. That is what you need to do on an individual level, not me as a taxpayer, not anybody else. But that's what the government is doing. And by the way, when you enact budgets like this, it's very hard to remove it from the budget. It's very hard for a government program to be shut down. So we're creating a bad policy here, a bad president, or should I say presidents, of creating a budget that's only going to expand. It's not going to get smaller. So this is not 3.5 trillion. It's only going to get bigger as time goes on. Quote, overall, the amount we spend now must be balanced with what we need and can afford, not designated to re-engineer the social and economic fabric of this nation or eventually tax for the sake of wishful spending, Manchin said. The dude sounds like a fiscal conservative. The problem is that really this type of idea in politics is not even fiscal conservative. It's just being irresponsible. But somehow, you know, obviously we've politicized everything in this country. So we have to just define everything like fiscal conservative, Republican, leftist, right? This is just being responsible with money. This is called being a freaking adult. You should not be spending more money than you have. It's common sense. I mean, how dumbed down can you make this? I'm not saying anybody that watches this show dumb. Please don't think that. But the fact that people are not yelling and screaming and pissed and irate about this boggles my mind. But whatever. Hey, you know what? Fuck it. We'll all go down the drain. We're all in it together. So, hey, if this is the shitstorm that we want to let go, let it go. And then, you know what? I'll have this as proof later on. I told everybody I damn told you so. And I hope everybody enjoys freaking taxes like we had in the past, like 90%, because we got to pay for this shit. Because you got Democrats and nobody wants to complain about it. Everybody's okay with that. And you know what? A part of me just can't wait for this crap to happen. My whole budget, by the way, on an individual level, my budget is predicated on all of this just going to shit. So how I'm planning for the future, I'm planning for like all this bad to happen later on. Mine is not like, oh, what we saw in like the 90s boom and the surplus that we had under Clinton and the good times under Trump. No. I'm planning for all of this to have to be paid back at some point and taxes being through the roof. And why everybody else wasn't prepared for doomsday, I'm going to be prepared for it. Now, I'm not one of those that's collecting water and food, which I probably should, but shit's going to hit the fan here, folks, probably in our lifetime. And I hope I'm wrong. With that being said, all you can do is laugh. You know, what am I going to do? Get more pissed over it? Yell to the moon? Bernie Sanders said his $6 trillion spending plan was probably too little, but $3.5 trillion is minimum, folks. And again, we have 3 years of this, so it's going to come back around again. The Democrats are going to spend more and more money. You think $3.5 trillion, maybe it's going to be another trillion in another 2 years. You know something's going to be passed before Joe Biden passes away here in the executive branch so they can sign off on it and agree with Congress spending this freaking stupid amount of money. But there you go, folks. It's good seeing all of you. I hope all of you have been doing well. Hope all of you are staying healthy at the moment. You know, get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated, hell, do whatever you want. We're a free country. We all need to love one another. We all need to get on board and unite over this spending problem so that we can be a successful country and not one that's going to be ran into the ground just like every other leftist state and city here in the country. With that being said, I love you folks. I hope all of you again are doing well. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Hit that like and subscribe button, share it with your friends and family. Get the word out there that we're going in the wrong direction, and I will see you later here on The Bald Brad Show.